Chairman, thank you for your testimony today. I appreciate that your dual mandate is full employment and price stability, and I appreciate your efforts on behalf of our country to achieve those. My understanding is that critical data is collected by the Bureau of Labor Statistics to help formulate the indicators that you rely on, that we rely on to understand unemployment rates, CPI, and other inflation indicators. We are certainly hearing a lot about the impacts of DOGE on our workforce, and specifically about the elimination of many of those positions in BLS. And now we have a proposal in front of Congress to cut $56 million from that agency. Are you concerned about the ability of your team to get accurate data and about the ability to have reliable indicators to make good decisions upon?
I wouldn't say that I'm concerned about the data today, although clearly there has been a very mild degradation of the scope of the surveys and things like that. But I would say the direction of travel is something I'm concerned about, and that is measuring the U.S. economy carefully and well is a project that's been going on, and we're getting better at it for 100 years and more. And it's really important, not just for the Fed, but for Congress and for businesses, frankly, to know what really is going on in the economy. What's happening? Is growth high? Is it low? And all those sorts of things. So I think it's a smart investment to just continually try to get better at measurement of what's happening in the economy. And I don't like to see that, the kind of stories I'm reading and the idea being that the data is going to become more volatile and less reliable. That'll make it more difficult for the private sector and for you and for us, and I don't like to see that direction.
I agree, thank you. I appreciate that it's not your role to comment on the advisability of specific policies, but given your critical role in ensuring price stability and reducing inflation, I have had conversations with, quite recently, just a week ago, with a C-suite executive of a major global retailer who informed me, because I asked, why aren't we seeing the impact of these tariffs and price data yet? And he said, it's coming in the third quarter, because it takes time for tariffs to work their way through a distribution chain. Often what you have on the shelf today may have been imported 2 or 3 months ago. Is that your understanding? Do you anticipate there may be impacts down the road?
Yeah, that's very much what I hear. I happened to meet with an unusually large number of business people in this last FOMC cycle, and that's a typical thing that they'll say, especially the retailers, that what's being sold now was in inventory in February, let's say, and it just isn't showing up yet. So we do expect to show up, tariff inflation to show up more, but I want to be honest, we really don't know how much of that's going to be passed through to the consumers. We just don't know, and we won't know until we see it. It could be lower than we expect. It could be higher. We have to wait and see, which is kind of what we're doing.
I appreciate the uncertainty. Another thing he told me that had me very concerned was that often they will increase prices on goods not subjected to tariffs to compensate for the very substantial losses they have to suffer with the increase of tariffs on relatively price elastic goods. So in other words, necessities will also tend to bear a higher price, even if they're not subjected to tariffs. Is that your understanding of the potential impacts?
That very much is something that companies will tell you that they do. If they can't cover the losses on the thing that's being tariffed, they'll find other ways to do it. We actually don't have prominent examples of that yet, but that's certainly a possibility, and that did happen in the last tariff episode with washing machines and dryers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And finally, there's indications in the introduction of the report that the Fed is losing its ability, as we see interest rates getting closer and closer to the minimum threshold, the ability to stimulate this economy in times of recession. We haven't had a recession, or at least we haven't had an extended recession in a decade and a half. I am particularly concerned now as we are looking at debt that is being considered to be imposed on future generations by this particular bill. Could there be a combination of very high debt and very little room to move in monetary policy that could undermine our ability to respond to the next recession?
So we faced that issue quite a bit in the era of very low interest rates, but, you know, we're at higher levels of interest rates now, so there was
Gentleman's time's
significantly more room to cut than there was then.